So we would like to do a rational approach of individuals and events. So, of course, we think that individuals matter, but not as in methodological individualism or rational action theory, because of their independence. And we conceive, it's classical, but individuals as process, social construction, and constructors. They are made by socialization through groups, institutions, and fields. So there is a historicity of the subjectivity of the self, from novel years to many works, and individuals are opened to the event. Just a parenthesis, but this type of affirmation you can see in the works of Claude Romano, which I mentioned yesterday. What does it mean on the philosophical point of view of to be open to the event? Okay, so event is conceived as the concomitance or strong distillation of perception of what seems possible or what is possible, and by the way, impossible for those individuals. Their contribution and their dependence on the context, by which I mean the meaning they give to their environment, depend on this reflective interplay. People act by observing others and react to fluctuations in their expectations. So, an event is an open process whose player, location, duration, stakes, and outcomes are not fixed in advance. They can abruptly invert the balance of power, and it is an emergent process. That means the recombining, the reconfiguration of these relations between several types of actors, but also sectors of institutions. So it's supposed to be a dynamic analysis. In that case, our event is a scandal. And a scandal is occurs when people challenging another person's or organization's probity are supported by simultaneous multisectorial mobilization, quoted from globally, Sociologie des crises politiques, linked to major changes in the actor's perception. And those two processes co-vary by varying the feasibility of public denunciation. And another central property of scandals, they are, as any events, a series of feedback loops. Causes produce effects which in turn reacts on these causes. So the changing in how the protagonists perceive and change by perceiving and acting differently the situation. So it's always, I think the hardest thing to do is to always think dynamically. It's very, very hard, but we try to. So, if you want to study a scandal, but as many other social processes, you should mapping the sometimes disconcerting variation in the feasibility of denouncing transgressions. For me, it's central to know the dynamic, the diachrony of the process. So, it's for you.
So for those who don't know the secret files, scandal, I will give you just a few words so you can understand what we are talking about. So the whole story started with the resignation of the Minister of Justice, Elisabeth Kopp, who was member of the Parti Radical, so the right. In November '88, some journalists wondered why her husband, a business lawyer, suddenly resigned from a company which was suspected of money laundering in relation with drug trafficking, while this investigation was still secret. So he had inside information from somewhere. And the newspaper Le Matin designated the top of the Ministry of Justice to be the source of the leak. Confronted with enormous mediatic and political pressure, Elisabeth Kopp admitted she asked her husband to resign and then announced her own resignation from office. The episode confirmed what many at that time suspected, that is, collisions between the top of the state, the justice, the financial institutions, and even maybe the organized crime. So as a result, the Parliament instituted a Parliamentary Inquiry Commission under pressure of the left. This is a very rare instrument in Switzerland, as it was used only once before in the 60s. So it shows that the situation is already somehow exceptional. The Commission had to investigate the whole Department of Justice and Police, which included the Federal Police. A few months later, its president, Moritz Leuenberger, announced the discovery of 900,000 files containing surveillance logs on organizations and individuals who have been suspected to threaten the national security. So it was during the Cold War, and most of the targeted individuals and organizations were leftists and progressists. I took here a copy of a file to show you how it looked like. So this is just on one person. This is a socialist leader who was under surveillance from 46 to 89. And when we will talk about this later, the people will be able to have access to this. And when we listed this, as you see, it's heavily redacted. So that's the corpus delicti, so to say. Yeah. So in the days following the report publication, some key individuals, namely socialist members of the parliament, organized mobilizations in and out of the parliament to denounce the Schnüffelstaat in German. It means the sniffling state in English. Those entrepreneurs de cause, supported by many journalists, started denunciating the mass surveillance of innocent citizens and compared the Swiss police to the Stasi. Among other things, they required to have access to the files, claim to which the government would surprisingly positively respond. So in 4 months, 350,000 people would have asked to have access to the file. That's a huge number. That's 5% of the population of Switzerland. The cultural sector also was mobilized as intellectuals and artists decided to go on a cultural strike. And on the 3rd March, the movement against the secret police gathered 35,000 people on the streets of Bern, a huge number for Switzerland. It also decided to launch a popular initiative demanding the abolition of the political police. That means they had to collect 100,000 signatures in 18 months. In the meantime, officials multiplied countermeasures in form of concessions. For instance, they agreed to set up a 2nd parliamentary inquiry commission, this time dedicated to the army, or in form of reforms and new legislations.
So what this event is made of course it's made of individuals, but among whom young members of the Swiss Socialist Party. They are coming from extreme left, the left-wing parties or movements. They were socialized in the 70s and linked to groups, networks, institutions, fields. So they are not just individuals as atoms. The event is made of strategies by those individuals, but those strategies are shaped by history, of course, by institutions, the repertoire of collective action from demonstration to popular initiative, which is very important in Switzerland, transformed, and the strategies are also transformed by the interaction. Emotions, of course, but the way individuals relate to their feelings is ambiguous and changing. Each depends on the situation, on the others, to express or repress emotions. So it's also a set of mirrors. That's why we call that a context. So individuals' strategies emotions are components of the event, and are all affected by the oscillation in perception of what seems possible. This is this huge demonstration for Switzerland. More than 30,000 people. It's very much, it's very rare, and that was the symbol of sniffing state.
It means sniffer your own bottle.
We don't see him, but Bernard was here, so something. He was here. So the context is a new doability, a new feasibility. There are huge variations of the doability of denunciation as perceived by some and against others. And between December 89 and April 80, publicly takes offense at the filing becomes much more feasible. And many actors are playing scandalization, outrage, because the entrepreneurs de cause are the less supposed to be surprised by the revelation of the existence of that huge surveillance. But they are playing it, but maybe in the effervescence of the collective action, they are feeling sincerely. So context is changing very fast, self-sustaining process tends to pull its initial condition. Indignation, different type of player feel in this new situation, there is a reason to be upset. It's doable. It's very easy during a few months. So what we have to understand is an auto-amplification process, as in a revolution or many other social processes. So we've got some to objectify or the things were changing and all the people could know that it was changing. For example, the report of the Parliamentary Commission was sold at 400 copies, which is very much for that kind of publication. There were surveys, polls in the newspapers, 72 of Swiss wanted investigation to the military department. This huge demonstration in Bern. Another poll, for most people it must be limited. Of course, it's a definition of situation that's changing. And one of the most striking things is that a journal made by those activists from extreme left groups, they made 300,000 copies of the first number of this journal. This is huge, and they sold them, all the newspapers. In just one day at that moment in March, 22,000 requests for access to the file in just one day. And in April, the success of the book, and in just 4 months, 75,000 signatures for the popular initiative. It's very huge and usual for Switzerland. So, to understand the auto-amplification process, of course, we don't have to think into causes and effects. I should put because effects feedback on causes. For example, the ministry accepted, it was a surprise, the request of the socialist parliamentaries, MPs, to access to the file, okay? And in the ministry, they thought that maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people will do in the next months. And in April, it's 350,000 people. That's very huge. And of course, this is a process like this. And to think dynamically, of course, there is no an order, of course, and it's just levels, But changing perceptions are changing actions, context, and structures. And of course, structure, we are made of structure. We are a social process, of course. But we have to think. It's a suggestion. Maybe it's we have to think the spiral causation, mixing upward and downward, so it's holistic or individual methodology type of causation. We have to mix them to see how the group influence the members and how the action of the members influence the group. So, social processes are rolled or intertwined or enroulé in French, and specular. That's very that's the main thing. So an example is there are a few MPs to ask for their dossier, and to this huge number, completely imprevisible. So that's what the event is made of. So there's also, of course, a new definition of situation.
Here are a few quotes from high officials in the bourgeois parties. So you can see they have adopted the new definition of the situation. So at the time there was only one, and it was like unthinkable to express publicly a diverging definition of the situation. For instance, we could see a lot of headlines like this at the time in March 90. But after a few months, it started to decline, and that's a kind of enigma how this big thing could just in a very short period of time decline. So. Yes, after a few months, from April or May 90, the mobilizations related to the scandal progressively declined, and the media reported less and less on the matter. What we'd like to show in this part is that this process is not natural or obvious, but is made by individuals and collectives, sometimes not on purpose. As we have seen, officials are threatened by this exceptionally critical situation. They set up numerous countermeasures, such as engaging in reforms and adopting new laws or suspending staff in the police. We consider these countermeasures as tactical moves. They aim at challenging the issues and conflicts into certain institutional arenas. The goal, in fine, is to resectorize the crisis, to go back to the ordinary political life. But in a context of structural uncertainty, some countermeasures are in the short term ineffective or even counterproductive. That's the case, for example, of the opening of the files, which the government thought it would be a small thing. It actually was a huge thing with 350,000 requests. So some other evolutions contribute to the decline of the scandal. The movement against the secret police focused the resources on the collective signature. I will come back later. Officials in the main institutions remain united. Reforms are underway, and the media coverage decreases. For example, you can see the number of articles dedicated to the scandal in the two main newspapers in the French part of Switzerland. As you can see, in February or March, there are articles every day in those papers, and it declined very fast. So in April, May, June, there are very few articles. Let's also mention the force of autosuggestion. For instance, the strategy adopted by the bourgeois party to convince others and themselves that what had to be done is done and that the matter is now over. Il est temps que le rideau tombe sur le dernier acte de cette pièce, said a parliamentarian in the National Council. You can see the title of this article is Dernier Acte. So this play is over now. We have enough. We go back to our ordinary life. Yes, well, it was the goal of the Parti Radical to regain control over the political agenda. Finally, we need to point out the channeling role of the institutions and the contestation. Institutions tend to limit what is thinkable or doable even in times of crisis. For instance, the use of a popular initiative, so of direct democracy, a Swiss particularity, requires a lot of resources, which are no longer available for other forms of actions like demonstration, etc. And once the signatures are collected, they lose influence on the agenda, as the treatment of the initiative is in the hands of the government. Furthermore, we see also that the cooptation of critical elements in institutional arenas, tradition in Swiss political life, also had pacifying effects, as the concerned people tend to shift the loyalty from the initial struggle to the institutions. That's a few elements to explain the rapid decline of the event. Now turning to consequences, by just a few words about biographical consequences. The event hasn't had profound biographical effects on a lot of persons. It was essentially a career accelerator for already strongly politicized people who were already on an ascending path in the field. It was the occasion for them to gain more social and symbolic capital and to develop skills they could be reused. That's the case, for example, of Peter Bodenmann, who was member of the parliament since 1887, member of the left wing of the Social Democratic Party, leader of the movement against the secret police. To the eyes of his peers, he passed the test, so to say, successfully passed the test of the scandal in how he could mobilize troops, and became president of the party a year later. That was also the case for Moritz Leuenberger, president of the commission. He wasn't really liked by the left wing of the Socialist Party because he was rather on the center. But its institutional loyalty was viewed as the evidence of its acceptability by the bourgeois majority of the parliament, which allowed him to be elected federal councillor, so minister, in 1905. But what about ordinary people? Actually, the event, this scandal, had few direct effects on ordinary people. There were no new leaders, very few ordinary people became protagonists of the event. One exception is the case of Catherine Weber, who was the secretary of this committee against the secret police. She corresponds the most to Augustine's concept of protagonism, according to which ordinary individuals, especially from popular classes, engage in an event that eventually transformed them. So Catherine Weber, she had no degree. She did one job after another until she's appointed randomly to more political functions, although she's not particularly politicized. She works a couple of years in the field of asylum and then for the anti-apartheid movement in Bern. That's how she knew all these people, these socialist leaders, those entrepreneurs de cause of the scandal. And she was asked to coordinate the new committee against the secret police. So in this moment she works day and night during several months. And we met her, she was deeply moved by the discovery of the extent of the police surveillance. She couldn't think it was possible in a so-called democracy. And she realizes she's living in a big event. She's part of it, and she has the feeling of being in history. So it will be a turning point in her life, insofar that this experience achieved her political socialization. Then she herself said the event made her more radical than ever. And until now, she kept working in the field human rights, transparency, and data protection. And yes, a few years later, she made a local political career in the city of Bern, at the left of the Social Democratic Party, thanks to her prestige, to the prestige of the wide social network she had built during the scandal. But let's go to finish, let's go beyond the individual experiences to give just a few words about the effects on the society level. We talked yesterday about memory and narratives, so I think that interests you. The scandal, even if the scandal didn't have profound structural consequences, it has become a common frame of reference in Swiss political life. It has become a landmark in the Swiss political culture, like the Watergate in the US. And until now, there are regularly uses of the scandal in the political, in the mediatic, and in the scientific field, which we are doing ourselves. The exposed use of a scandal or any other political event is never neutral. It can be, for example, a political versus, as in the current campaign against the new law on intelligence, which we will vote on next week in Switzerland. As you can see, the stigma Schnüffelstadt is recycled 30 years later, so it's not the same generation, but the generation recycled the old struggle. So even as we speak, as researchers exploring what the event was made of, we engage ourselves in meaning struggles. So we participate indirectly and a posteriori to the making of the event.
So in conclusion, to understand an event, it is useful to grasp the way individuals experience it. So that's why an event is never reducible to its causes or to its factuality. The rest is here, but I think the most important is how to deal with methods to to find methods that allow to consider the deformability of structures according to what the actors are doing. And so we are also waiting for propositions.
Thank you very much.